This is a loaded question, but I'm going to do it anyway. Would you consider yourself pro-Hamas or more pro-Palestine, and is there a meaningful difference here?
I don't think there's a meaningful difference. I don't care if these guys are Hamas or some other group. I don't think it matters. These are Palestinians who came out to fight for their people, to fight for their nation, to fight for their freedom. I think if there was no Hamas, there wouldn't be somebody else. There'd be somebody else. That's not the issue. I don't care who they're affiliated with. I don't think it matters. It's any Palestinians who they're affiliated with. These are Palestinian fighters who came and are fighting for the liberation and the freedom of their people. That's the bottom line. And again, I think framing it as pro-Palestinian or not pro-Palestinian is a little misleading or very misleading, because once again, supporting the cause, the Palestinian call for justice and freedom, ultimately will lead to the possibility of peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Because at the end of the sentence is a free Palestine from the river to the sea with equal rights, free democratic state on all historic Palestine with equal rights, where Israelis and Palestinians can live together. Supporting the other side, supporting Israel, means supporting what we're seeing now, this state that has been accused by Amnesty International of the crime of humanity, a crime of apartheid, which is a crime against humanity, and the kind of vicious violence that we're seeing now against civilians in Gaza. And we've been seeing, really, Palestinians have been living a life of terror for 75 years. A life of terror, a daily life of terror every single day for 75 years since Israel was established. So this is the choice. It's not pro-Palestine, pro-Israel. It's pro-freedom, pro-equality, pro-justice, or pro-violence and racism. Mm-hmm. These are the choices.
And I want to clarify something, or give you the opportunity to clarify something, because this is the from the river to the sea thing is so confusing for a lot of people. And so in the book, you talk about your support of the Palestinian state, or a Palestinian state in the West Bank, Gaza, with Jerusalem as its capital. Is that still like kind of where you're at with this?
Well, at the end of the book, what I say is that my realization is that all the entire country is occupied Palestine.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So it seems like now it includes modern day Israel as Palestine and one state of Palestine from the river to the sea. I should have read the rest of my notes. That's what I get from trying to wing it.
Right.
So tell us what from the river to the sea actually means, because some people are like, oh, it just means everyone should live together democratically and live happily ever after, and other people are like, no, it means get rid of all the Jews. And I'm like, so much bad faith online. It's like you don't even. What do you think? What does it mean when you say it? What does it mean?
Well, I know what it means when I say it. I know what it means when Palestinians say it, and when people that I work with say it, and I know what it means. What it means, it's very simple. From the river to the sea refers to all of historic Palestine. So on the east, it's the River Jordan. In the west, it's the Mediterranean. In the north, it's the borders with Lebanon and Syria. In the south, it's the Gulf of Aqaba and the border with Egypt. It's very clearly defined. Every single map you look at before 1948, that region is called Palestine, going back thousands of years. And so from the river to the sea means freedom over all of historic Palestine, freedom from apartheid, freedom from checkpoints, freedom from violence, freedom from racism, where, like I said earlier, the possibility of Israelis and Palestinians living together in peace becomes a reality. That's how you make it a reality. It's the only way that you can make it a reality. It's like white South Africans and black South Africans couldn't possibly live in peace under apartheid. Israelis and Palestinians can't possibly live in peace under a regime where I have privilege over my Palestinian friends. It's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. There's no possibility of it ever happening.
I think people are afraid that Israel might start to look like South Africa after the fact, because the country is not in good shape right now. Now, the reasons for that are different than, they integrated.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's like, I want to be very clear.
South Africa had, 40, 50 million Africans who never had the opportunity to go to school,
right?
Who were impoverished, a vast majority. Israeli and Palestinian societies are highly educated societies. Israeli and Palestinian societies can go to work. If tomorrow morning the apartheid regime fell, you had elections, and you had a free democratic state with equal rights, it would be a flourishing, functioning democracy immediately. You got people waiting, in Gaza. Every time I talk about Gaza now, I just think of all the people I know that have been killed and their families. But, Gaza has, I think, one of the largest PhD per capita in the world. We're talking about very highly educated, very productive societies that can go to work the next day. We're not talking about, just beginning to educate millions and millions of people.
What some people might say, hey, though, democracy in the Middle East, that's a fairy tale. No other state in the area has a democracy. Even Hamas and Fatah haven't had elections in a decade or more. What do you say to that?
I say it's nonsense. It's racism and it's nonsense. The state of Israel is certainly not a democracy. It's never been a democracy. It's been an apartheid state from the very beginning. It was a democracy for people like myself, but we are now less than half of the population, so that's not considered a democracy. But the reasons that so many other countries in the region don't have democracies is because there are greater powers that are preventing them. Mm-hmm. There's more interest in arming dictators and keeping them in power, so that their foreign policy would be aligned with the U.S. and the Europeans and so on. But Palestinians and Israelis actually have had traditions of democracy going back a very long time. Ever since their political lives were these political entities existed, there were democracies, and and there's no reason to expect it wouldn't be a democracy. And again, we're not talking about a country where you place a king and you say, okay, he's the ruler. We're going to arm him. We're going to send him a lot of money, and we're going to make sure there's no democracy, which is what happened in a lot of countries in the region. Palestine is not like that. It's a completely different reality. It's a completely different character of the people, and character of the country. It always has been.
What do you say to the Israelis who say, well, if we let them do this, they're just going to wipe out all the Jews and take our stuff, which is what, happened to them earlier? I mean, a lot of people are afraid of that, right? They feel like, even if they agree with you, they're like, I still don't want to get exterminated by the Palestinians coming back to Jerusalem where I live now.
I don't know what in the world makes them say that. I mean, there's no history to that. There's no reason to expect that. Why would anybody say? I don't know why anybody would think that. I mean, there's no history. There's no history to that, and there's no. And again, there's no history. The history of Jews in Arab countries is a long history of coexistence, even in Palestine.
Well, and being expelled in pogroms. I mean, come on, we got to be fair.
Not in the Arab world. Not in the Arab world. Not in the Arab world.
Really?
In the Arab world, not in the Arab world. This is the experience of Jews in Europe. This has never been the experience, and I highly recommend you read a book. Where is it? I have it here.
I will.
By Israeli historian Avi Shleim. It's called Three Identities, the memoir of an Arab Jew. He is from Iraq, and he talks about the Iraqi community and what it was like for Jews in Baghdad. This is not the experience of Jews in the Arab world. And if you listen to, there were Jewish communities in Jerusalem, in Hebron, in the north, in Tabariya and Safad, and so on, and they lived in harmony. They've always lived in harmony. They always lived well together. They shared the same values. They babysat each other's children. I mean, the relations between Jews and Arabs, even in Palestine, was very, very good until the Zionists came. And the same thing happened in Iraq. The same thing happened in Syria. The same thing happened in all of North Africa. Jews lived very well in the Arab world. The Arab world welcomed Jews. And when Jews were escaping from Europe, the Arab world is where they came to, and very often where they came to find protection. But that was not the experience. And what the Zionists are doing now, and what Israel is doing now, they're perpetuating this revisionist history that says that the Jews in the Arab world, there were pogroms, they were kicked out. None of this is true. This is absolutely not true.
Yeah, because of course, that's what I've been reading, right? Is it's like, oh, well, all the Arabic Jews from Iraq and Morocco, et cetera, had to leave because of
They didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave.
Well, right.
None of them wanted to leave. And there are particular stories. We don't have time to get into it now.
Yeah.
But the particular stories of each and every country and what happened and why they end up leaving, are tragic stories. And the people regret leaving, because they were there for generations. And Arab Jewish, the culture of Arab Jews was a very rich and distinct culture, and it was respected by the countries in which they lived, again, including Palestine.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that's definitely contrary to some of the things that I've been learning and reading about. I need you to send me that book title at some point, because I just tried to Google it and I got a bunch of math books. Three Identities is not specific enough, I guess.